Thank you for stopping by Luxuriously Poor, and I hope you find today's video helpful. And I would like to say that if you need wisdom on what to do for now or the future, this book is extremely helpful. Okay, I wanted to start by saying that sourdough has always been daunting to me. It's one of those things that I always had kind of a fear of. First of all, from just the recipes of how to make the starter, it's a lot of work. It really is. But it bothered me because I was so curious as what does it really taste like. I've heard it's the healthiest bread there is out there for you. So I finally caved in. Now, I've had this recipe to make this, and I got it from King Arthur Flour. I think it's kingarthur.com or flour.com, something. And really, it's basically just water and flour. That's it. That's your yeast. What you're building is a yeast. You're making your own yeast instead of buying the commercial. The bigger jar is the discard. Now, this jar has been sitting overnight because my recipe calls for half a cup of starter. Well, the other jar is where I've been putting all the discard. This is the jar where I've been taking out and replenishing it. And what you do is to start your starter, you use 1 cup of flour and a half a cup of water, and you mix it together. Now, I will tell you, and then you put it in a jar. And it takes days, and you do this for like 5-6 days. I find it easier if you take the half a cup of starter out of that and you just leave the jar sitting there, and you take a small bowl, you put your flour in the bowl, you put your starter in the bowl, you put your half a cup of water, mix it, and then dump it back into a smaller bowl. And what's left over in that other jar, you dump it into your discard, because you're going to clean the jar. It's too hard for you to mix everything in the same jar. If you want to do it, you can do it that way. But for about 7 days, you keep repeating that process. You take a half a cup of your starter from your jar, and you take 1 cup of flour and a half a cup of water, and you stir it together. Like I said, I use a bowl. Then I put that in the container, and what's left in the jar, I put it in my discard bottle. Okay? And you just keep doing that for 5 or 6 days. And the last couple of days, you can do it for twice a day. In the morning, cup of flour, half a cup of water, half a cup of starter, stir it, and look at what you get. Over a 7-day period, you will have a starter, which is just your yeast. And you get a beautiful loaf of bread. So all I can say, now I can tell you, this loaf of bread was very stiff. I was afraid it wasn't going to turn out. But I read that if your dough is super stiff, it's probably because it's more flour to water. So what I did is I did not give up. Every time I would go to fold my bread over, I would wet my hands really good. Because as I was folding it, I was putting a little more water in there. And I did this for a few hours, and I began to realize and notice that the dough didn't feel as stiff as it did before. So I kept going and doing this for a couple hours. And then I took a towel, put it in a bowl, sprinkled flour over the towel, sprinkled flour over the top of the bread, folded the towel over the top of the dough, put a shower cap over the bowl, stuck it in the refrigerator, and left it there until this morning. And then I took it out and I let it sit for 3 hours before I baked it. Okay, guys, I couldn't wait. I cut this even though it was hot because I was so curious as to how it looked on the inside. And it's gorgeous. Now I'm going to take a bite because I'm going to be honest, I've never eaten really sourdough bread. And they claim, I'm talking with my mouth full. Well, I'm going to tell you something. This is delicious. And it doesn't have a real sour taste to it. Oh, but it's got this earthy, just absolutely delicious taste. This is well worth it. And I definitely will try this again. Oh, it is so, so good, guys. I mean, really good. And it was done with no yeast, just sourdough starter and flour. Mm-hmm.